Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Today is Columbus Day. How's the Columbus statue that used to adorn Grand Park? How's that coming along? Has that been restored yet?
Oh yeah, no. She promised to give it back. Both statues, the one in Little Village or Little Italy, and the one in Columbus, or the one near Lakeshore Drive. I don't know. I mean, are they parading them out today? Is it part of the parade?
I don't know. We should ask the Italianos that were making a big deal about it, that we're going to fight this fight to get the statues back or die trying. What's the status of that? Kamala Harris, she weighed in on Columbus Day in just the sort of ahistorical, dumbass way you would expect her to.
It is an honor, of course, to be with you this week as we celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day, as we speak truth about our nation's history. Since 1934, every October, the United States has recognized the voyage of the European explorers who first landed on the shores of the Americas. But that is not the whole story. That has never been the whole story. Those explorers ushered in a wave of devastation for tribal nations, perpetrating violence, stealing land, and spreading disease. We must not shy away from this shameful past, and we must shed light on it and do everything we can to address the impact of the past on Native communities today.
Yes, thinking about the passage of time again, she is right. The noble savages argument, like that's the whole story. That's not the whole story. Of course, Native peoples had been slaughtering their enemies and stealing land for centuries in the West before the Europeans arrived. But I know that's not fashionable among Kamala's supporters. I did like one response on X. European explorers were just asylum seekers bringing diversity to the new continent. Not bad.
Perfect.
So maybe Trump can in part address some of this identitarian nonsense emanating from Kamala Harris and her local surrogates like BLM Brandon Johnson when he comes to town tomorrow to address the Economic Club of Chicago. Because Brandon Johnson and his team certainly blame Trump for the problems that bedevil the city. For example, his chief of staff, this former state legislator, is newly minted chief of staff, Christine Passion-Zayas, on the problems that Chicago Public Schools have, that the city has with their finances, not that the COVID money has run out. You know whose fault that is.
Trump's.
And as a state senator, you push for more state funds for education. Why hasn't the mayor's office been able to convince state lawmakers and the governor to help Chicago bridge the gap?
Well, I would actually have to say that we've been working closely with the governor's office. Our financial team, as well as the governor's office financial team, are in close communication and coordination, looking at not just a situation where we're bailing out CPS or we're bailing out Chicago. We have some structural issues that we have to address. COVID dollars are expiring. We have diminishing returns on revenues such as the personal property replacement tax, and that's because Trump had lifted the caps and corporations are able to write off more and not put money into the revenue stream, which is basically now creating the deficit that we have for 2024 and some of the forecasts to 2025. These two teams are working on strategies that will assist all municipalities across the city to deal with both of these issues.
All municipalities across the city is one municipality. But anyway, I digress. No, of course, just as Nixon is responsible for the violent crime in Chicago, so says BLM Brandon, so Trump is responsible for the financial catastrophe that is the city, the county, the Chicago public school systems, the state, of course. Karoline Leavitt is Trump's 2024 National Press Secretary. She joins us now to preview his appearance before the Economic Club of Chicago tomorrow. Karoline, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be with you, and we look forward to heading to Chicago for the big speech tomorrow.
Yeah, I hope Trump is properly briefed on all the interesting things that politicians like Brandon Johnson and J.B. Pritzker have been saying on it, because, of course, I know from that Flagrant podcast, he's good with names. I sort of knew that before. So I'd certainly like him to address our local politicians here, some of his biggest critics.
Oh, of course. He's well read. He's well apprised. Look, these are people who unfortunately hate Donald Trump more than they love the city of Chicago and love this country and want to do right by it. So president's used to this. He doesn't let it deter him from going to Democrat-run cities like Chicago to talk about the problems that you guys are facing with your increased crime, the situation at the southern border that has worsened economic conditions in the city, especially for minority Americans. He goes to blue cities all the time. He was just in Aurora, Colorado, which is another Democrat-run city and a Democrat-leaning state that has been decimated by the southern border crisis. You have Venezuelan gangs taking over apartment complexes there. So President Trump, he's focused on solving the problems the American people are facing, and he very much looks forward to going to Chicago tomorrow. Look, it's a city that he loves. He's been doing business there forever. As you know, the beautiful Trump Hotel right in the middle of the city. And so he'll be there, and I know he looks forward to it.
What do you say to people? Because we had a caller earlier, a few hours ago, say, hey, I don't know why he's in California. I don't know why he's in Colorado. He should be planting himself in Michigan and Pennsylvania only.
Well, what I say is we are barnstorming the battleground states. We're going to Pennsylvania today. He'll be in Georgia tomorrow. He was just in Michigan. He'll be there again. He'll be in Pennsylvania again at the latter half of this week. I mean, he is on the road literally every single day. There's 22 days left in this race, and he will be on the campaign trail every single one of them. With that said, when President Trump hears people are suffering, he wants to go to the source of that suffering. He wants to see people on the ground where they are and talk about the problems they're facing. And it's him who really leads the charge to go to places like Aurora, Colorado, or like New York City, his home city that he loves so much and has, watched really be deteriorated by Democrat-run policies. He wants to be a president for all Americans, not just red states or states that can help him get elected on the map, but every state for all people. And I think it's frankly refreshing to see someone who's not a politician kind of go against that conventional wisdom of you have to spend time in these states this amount of time before the election. He does what he feels is right. But with that said, of course, we're spending significant time in the battleground states as well.
No, the other thing, though, too, that this does, going to Detroit as he did, coming to Chicago as he is, it sends a message that I am going to communicate directly to populations that have not traditionally embraced Republican candidates, and it's paying dividends. We see the freak out going on the other side right now because of the support that Trump is getting from black voters, particularly black men. They had to enlist Obama to scold black men nationally, Latino voters, and so forth. And of course, they're concentrated in metropolitan areas, some of these communities. And Trump is speaking directly to them and over and around the media gatekeepers and the local political gatekeepers too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly right. And we live in a national media landscape now. So if President Trump is in Chicago, voters in Pennsylvania, for instance, can hear his message just the same because of the national media that we live in. And to your point, you have to meet these voters where they are in their communities. And when President Trump goes to places like Detroit or Chicago tomorrow or Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, we're hearing from voters on the ground at these events that say, thank you for coming here. Thank you for talking about, these issues. Even the Democrat Party has left us behind. They claim to be for us and they're not. And that's why you're seeing it pay off in the polls. There's a lot of critics out there, but clearly the strategy is working out because President Trump is leading with these demographics that Republicans have not won in a very long time, especially Latino voters. He's picking up a historic margin of the black vote. Especially black men. And the numbers that we're seeing in some of these polls are truly catastrophic for the Democrat Party and for Kamala Harris's electoral chances. President Trump is cutting right into their base.
We talked about this a little bit earlier in our program, too. Some of the polling of Arab Americans in Michigan, too, which is unusually strong. Kamala Harris running 18 points behind Biden's 2020 total with Arab Americans.
Yes, that's right. And, look, Arab Americans and Jewish Americans both understand that this war would not be happening in the Middle East if President Trump were still commander-in-chief. It wasn't happening. The Middle East was stable. He got Israel to sit down with 7 Arab nations. They hardly spoke before he became president, and he brought them to the negotiating table because he's a negotiator, right? That's what he does for a living. And he settled peace agreements, the historic Abraham Accords. The Middle East, for the first time in decades, was truly stable. There was a sense of stability. We weren't seeing Iran fire missiles at Israel every other week, and it's because they were broke, they were restrained. President Trump had very effective sanctions on them, and those sanctions have been lifted by Kamala Harris. So look, whether you're an Arab American, a Jewish American, a Christian, we all want peace. And President Trump is a peacemaker. He did it in his first term, and he will do it again when he's reelected.
So when he was in Detroit, he pledged to make car loan interest fully deductible. So what's he got in store for Chicago? Can you give us a little preview? Maybe make gun purchases tax deductible, or because that's what we need here to protect ourselves.
Hey, it's not a bad idea. It's a clever thought. I'll have to propose it to the president today.
Please.
No. I don't have anything to preview for you this morning, but I will tell you, he has spoken now at the New York Economic Club where he unveiled bold policy promises, and now he went to Detroit as well to talk about the auto industry. So he will have a very bold and ambitious address tomorrow in Chicago. Details you will find out tomorrow, but rest assured it's going to directly, talk about the issues that folks in your city are facing, and he has real, policy solutions, something we're not hearing from Kamala Harris right now. President Trump has real plans to protect jobs here at home, to bring down inflation, to cut taxes, to incentivize job growth and competition, and to bring more jobs back to the country.
And if I can be so bold as to propose one other topic he should cover that he's covered before, but I haven't heard him cover in a while, and it would be a very timely message here and, frankly, around the country, and that is opportunity scholarships and school choice at the K through 12 level.
Well, indeed. And school choice, huge issue. President Trump has been a huge proponent of it, as you know, in his first term. And he speaks very much about it on the campaign trail now. And, look at a city like Chicago where you see the need for school choice arguably more than any other place in the country. And it's very hypocritical for Democrats, elitist Democrats, to be against school choice when they have the opportunity to send their children to private school. President Trump wants every child, regardless of their parents' economic status or this town they grow up in, their zip code, to be able to have the best education opportunity possible. As he says, this is truly the civil rights issue of our time. Education is the great equalizer. It's such an important part of our children's lives. And we especially saw that during COVID. I know Chicago saw it, again, more than anyone else. So certainly it's a big issue, and I'm sure he will mention it tomorrow.
Excellent.
Karoline, as we all know, a man that was armed was arrested outside his rally in Coachella, California. Just wondering if you've talked to him, how he's feeling about it. I know that there's still information coming out, but how's he doing?
He's doing great. I mean, look, it's really remarkable how great he does in the face of all this danger. We don't know the details fully yet of what happened in California, but we do know the Iranians are engaged in a legitimate plot to take out President Trump. We know there are many threats that happen here at home every day, threats abroad. We're just very grateful to the president's personal detail on the Secret Service who keep him safe, in addition to local and state law enforcement everywhere we go, who accompany us on our motorcade ride, who, accompany us at the airport when we fly all over the country. It's truly appreciated by not just the president and his family, but our entire campaign team. And, we just pray to God that we stay safe over these next 22 days so President Trump can be back in the White House in January.
Indeed. But just on this one in Coachella, I mean, is it clear to you that it was an assassination attempt or an assassination plot?
To be honest, it's not quite clear yet. We've seen some conflicting reports between the gentleman who was arrested, local law enforcement, the feds. Secret Service has their own opinion. So, it's not our place on the campaign to weigh in on what happened. We'll leave it up to law enforcement. We trust them to make the best decision. But again, it speaks to the heightened tension in this country. And I think law enforcement everywhere we go is truly, on a more high alert than maybe they ever have been when President Trump comes to town. Just, because of the danger and the threats that we know he's all facing.
Karoline Leavitt, she is the Trump 2024 National Press Secretary. Karoline, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. Thank you. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Yep, thank you so much. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Dan owed an unbelievable amount of money to the IRS.
I got behind on my taxes. It's a horrible feeling.
He was in denial.
And when I got those letters from the IRS, you wanted to act like they didn't exist.
Finally, Dan turned to Optima Tax Relief, the leading tax resolution firm. A-plus rated by the Better Business Bureau, they've resolved over $1 billion for their clients.
Optima got me a settlement with the IRS. These people are really people-friendly. It was every bit